At a glitzy charity gala, Ethan Cole thought he was being clever when he casually announced to his friends, "I only date white women," but he had no idea that fate was about to walk through those ballroom doors in an emerald dress. When stunning art teacher Naomi Brooks arrived seconds later and heard every word, the room fell silent as all eyes moved between them, turning his thoughtless joke into a moment of public humiliation that would change both their lives forever. What started as a careless comment would force them to work together, challenging everything they thought they knew about love, prejudice, and second chances. But when old wounds collide with new feelings, can a relationship built on the ashes of shame ever truly heal? Some mistakes can't be undone, but sometimes they can be transformed into something beautiful. If you're watching this story unfold, hit subscribe and tell me what city you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. The music in the hotel ballroom hummed softly in the background. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables draped in white cloth. Men in dark suits and women in evening dresses moved between displays, showing photos of smiling children. The charity gala was in full swing. Ethan Cole stood at a high table near the bar. His black tie felt a little too tight around his neck. At 30, he had attended dozens of these events. His mother, Lorraine, always made sure he came. Tonight felt the same as all the others. "Still flying solo, Ethan?" asked Mr. Peterson, an older man who donated big money to the charity each year. He sipped his wine and smiled. "When are you going to settle down?" Mark Davis, Ethan's co-worker and longtime friend, laughed and nudged Ethan's shoulder. "Come on, tell him your secret. You're too picky, right?" Ethan felt the familiar pressure to be funny, to say something that would make everyone laugh. He looked around the small circle of people watching him. The wine had made him feel loose and careless. "Relax," Ethan said with a grin. "I only date white women." Some people in the circle laughed. Others looked uncomfortable. One woman glanced away and took a sip of her drink. Ethan noticed the awkward silence but shrugged it off. This was how his group always talked. It was just jokes. At that exact moment, the ballroom doors opened. A woman stepped inside. She wore an emerald green dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Her dark skin glowed under the soft lights. She checked her phone quickly, looking a little breathless from arriving late. She was beautiful, stunning, actually. Several guests turned to look. Their eyes moved from Naomi to Ethan, back to Naomi, then to Ethan again. The connection was clear. The timing was terrible. Ethan's stomach dropped. His smile faded as he met the woman's curious gaze. She looked at him with calm, neutral eyes, but he could see the moment she understood, the moment she realized what everyone was looking at. The music suddenly felt too loud. His collar felt tighter. The joke that had seemed harmless seconds ago now hung in the air like smoke. "Oh," Ethan whispered to himself. The woman adjusted her purse strap and walked further into the ballroom. Her back was straight, her head was high. She didn't look at him again. Mark patted Ethan's back. "Bad timing, buddy," he said with a chuckle. But Ethan wasn't laughing anymore. He watched the woman in the green dress move through the crowd. Something heavy settled in his chest, something he had never felt before. Shame. Lorraine Cole moved through the crowd like a graceful butterfly. She wore a navy blue dress, and her silver hair was perfectly styled. At 58, she had been running charity events for years. She knew how to make everyone feel welcome. "Naomi, there you are." Lorraine's face lit up with genuine joy. She hurried toward the woman in the green dress. "I was starting to worry you couldn't make it." Naomi Brooks smiled warmly. "I'm sorry I'm late, Mrs. Cole. One of my students had an emergency with their art project. You know how it is. Please, call me Lorraine. And don't apologize. You saved our event. The decorations look absolutely perfect." Naomi looked around the ballroom. White and gold flowers created elegant arches. Soft lighting made everything glow. Small cards with handwritten names sat at each place setting. It had taken her 3 days to set everything up. "Thank you. I'm just glad it worked out." Lorraine took Naomi's arm gently. "Come, let me introduce you to some people. They've all been asking about the woman who made our event so beautiful." They walked toward the group at the high table. Ethan stood there with his friend Mark and a few donors. He straightened up when he saw them coming. His face looked pale. "Everyone, this is Naomi Brooks," Lorraine announced proudly. She's an art teacher at Lincoln Elementary, and she's the creative genius behind tonight's gorgeous decorations. The group smiled and said hello. Naomi shook hands politely, but she could feel something strange in the air, a tension she couldn't quite understand. "Nice to meet you," Ethan said when Lorraine introduced him. His voice sounded tight. "You too," Naomi replied. She studied his face. He looked nervous, guilty, almost. Mark grinned and raised his glass. Ethan was just telling us about his dating life. The comment hit the air like a stone thrown into still water. Naomi felt the ripples of discomfort around the circle. She saw the way some people looked down at their drinks, the way others shifted their feet. Ethan's cheeks turned red. "I have a bad sense of humor," he said quickly. "People take jokes too seriously these days." Naomi's smile cooled. She had heard those exact words before, from her ex-boyfriend in college, from men who said hurtful things and then blamed her for being sensitive. "I've heard worse," she said quietly, "but I'm not in the mood for jokes tonight." She excused herself and walked toward the far end of the ballroom. Her heels clicked softly on the marble floor. She needed to check the table settings anyway, and she needed space to breathe. Behind her, Ethan watched her go. The heavy feeling in his chest grew heavier. The gala continued around them. Waiters carried trays of appetizers. A string quartet played soft music in the corner. People laughed and talked and admired the decorations Naomi had created. 30 minutes later, a loud crack cut through the gentle noise. One of the central flower arches had collapsed. It leaned against the photo backdrop, flowers scattered on the floor. Guests stepped back in surprise. A few people gasped. "Oh no," Lorraine breathed. She looked around frantically. "Naomi, we need you." Naomi appeared quickly. She assessed the damage with calm, practiced eyes. The arch wasn't completely broken, but it needed to be rebuilt before more people wanted photos. "Don't worry," she told Lorraine. "I can fix this, but I need someone strong to help me lift pieces." Lorraine looked around and spotted Ethan. "Ethan, go help Naomi. Do whatever she needs." Ethan nodded and followed Naomi behind the fallen arch. Other staff members brought tools and supplies. Naomi directed everyone with quiet confidence. "Can you hold this upright while I secure the base?" she asked Ethan. He gripped the metal frame and lifted. Naomi worked quickly underneath, tightening screws and adjusting supports. She knew exactly what to do. "A little to the left," she said. Ethan moved the frame. He followed her directions without arguing or trying to take over. Most men she knew would have started giving their own suggestions by now. "Perfect. Hold it there." They worked together for 20 minutes. Naomi redesigned the arch to be simpler but stronger. Ethan carried heavy pieces and held things in place. They didn't talk much, but they moved like a team. When they finished, the new arch looked even, better than the original. "Nice work," Naomi said, stepping back to admire their repair. "You did all the hard parts," Ethan replied. "I just lifted things." She glanced at him. He was out of breath and his shirt was wrinkled, but he looked satisfied, like he had enjoyed following her lead instead of trying to perform for an audience. "Thank you," she said simply. They walked back to the main party together. The rest of the evening passed without major problems. Guests gave speeches about the charity's work. They ate dinner and danced to the string quartet. But Naomi kept thinking about Ethan's joke, about the way people had looked at her when she walked in, about the familiar sting of being reduced to someone's preference. And Ethan kept watching Naomi move through the crowd. He saw how kind she was with the older guests, how patient she was when people complimented her work, how graceful she looked, even when she was tired. He thought about his father, who had made similar jokes at family dinners, about how he had learned to laugh along instead of speaking up, about how normal it had seemed until tonight. The last guests left around midnight. Staff began cleaning up the ballroom. Empty wine glasses covered tables, crumpled napkins lay scattered on chairs. The beautiful evening was ending. Naomi gathered leftover flowers into small bundles. Her feet ached in her high heels. But the flowers could be donated to a nursing home tomorrow. She hated to see pretty things go to waste. "Need help carrying those?" She looked up to see Ethan holding a large plastic bin. He had taken off his tie and rolled up his shirt sleeves. "Thank you," she said. "These can go to the loading dock." They worked side by side, cleaning and organizing. The ballroom grew quieter as other staff finished their tasks. Soon it was just the two of them and a few maintenance workers. "Naomi," Ethan said as they stacked empty vases. "About what I said earlier. At the bar. She kept wrapping flower, stems in paper. What about it? It was insensitive, really insensitive. When you walked in right after, I realized how ugly it sounded." Naomi's hands paused. She looked at him directly. "Why did you say it?" "I don't know. I wanted to be funny. My friends expect me to." He stopped and shook his head. "That's not a reason. That's an excuse." "You're right," she said quietly. "It is an excuse." They continued cleaning in silence for a few minutes. Then Naomi spoke again. "I'm tired," she said. "I'm tired of being the person who has to decide whether to laugh off comments that hurt, whether to call someone out and be labeled difficult, or stay quiet and feel small." Ethan listened. He didn't try to defend himself or make more excuses. "In college, I dated someone who said things like that," Naomi continued. "When I told him it bothered me, he said I was too sensitive, that he was just being honest about his preferences. Like that made it okay." "I'm sorry," Ethan said. "I'm sorry. Someone made you feel that way. And I'm sorry I reminded you of it tonight." Naomi finished wrapping the last bundle of flowers. She could hear the sincerity in his voice, but she had heard sincere apologies before, too. "I should go," she said. "My cousin is picking me up." They walked to the hotel entrance together. A rideshare car waited by the curb. Naomi could see Tasha in the driver's seat, watching them through the windshield. "Thank you for helping tonight," Naomi said. "With the arch and everything. Thank you for letting me help." She got into the car and rolled down the window slightly. "Take care, Ethan." As the car pulled away, Naomi gave him a small nod through the glass. Not unfriendly, but not encouraging either. Just acknowledgement. Ethan stood on the sidewalk with his hands in his pockets. He watched the taillights disappear into the night. The heavy feeling in his chest had settled there to stay. He thought about driving home to his quiet condo, about going to work on Monday and pretending nothing had happened, about Mark asking him for details about the artist girl. But mostly he thought about Naomi's words, about being tired of having to decide whether to laugh off comments that hurt. For the first time in his life, Ethan wondered what other people had to decide because of things he said, because of jokes he made without thinking, because of preferences he stated like they didn't affect real human beings. The night air felt cold against his skin. He walked slowly to his car, knowing that something important had shifted tonight, something he couldn't take back or laugh off, something that mattered. Naomi's apartment was small but cozy. Soft yellow walls and plants on every windowsill made it feel warm. Photos of her students' artwork covered the refrigerator. A half-finished painting sat on an easel in the corner. She sat at her small kitchen table in a t-shirt and leggings. Her phone buzzed with a voice message from Tasha. "Girl, check your messages. Someone from the hotel sent this to everyone. You need to see it." Naomi's stomach tightened. She tapped the video link with shaky fingers. The recording showed Ethan and his friends at the bar. The audio was clear, his voice saying, "I only date white women." The uncomfortable laughter that followed, someone's low whistle. But worse than the original moment was the timestamp. She could see herself in the background, just walking through the ballroom doors. The timing was crystal clear. She replayed the video. This time she watched the faces around Ethan. Some people looked uncomfortable, others seemed amused. But everyone understood the connection when she appeared. Her phone rang. Tasha's name appeared on the screen. "Did you see it?" Tasha asked without saying hello. "I saw it. That man is trash, Naomi. I knew it the second I saw him standing there looking guilty." Naomi closed her eyes. He apologized. "Of course he did. He got caught. That video is already spreading around social media. People are calling him out in the comments. What are they saying? Nothing you need to read. The point is, he showed you exactly who he is. And then he tried to blame bad humor like that makes it better." Naomi scrolled through her phone to find the screenshot Tasha had mentioned. There it was, a group chat message from Ethan to his friends. "Yeah, bad timing, that's all. Bad timing. Not I was wrong, or I shouldn't have said that. Just bad timing. Like the problem wasn't the words themselves, but when he said them." "I can't believe I almost bought his apology," Naomi whispered. "Almost doesn't count. You didn't. Your instincts were right. They talked for another 10 minutes. Tasha promised to keep an ear out for more gossip. She reminded Naomi that she deserved better, that there were good men out there who would never make jokes like that in the first place. After they hung up, Naomi sat in her quiet kitchen. The video was still open on her phone. She could see her own face in the background, hopeful, unaware of what she had just walked into. She thought about Ethan's hands helping her fix the flower arch, about how he had listened when she talked about being tired, about the way his apology had sounded genuine. But then she read his group chat message again. Bad timing, that's all. Naomi turned her phone face down on the table. She had made a decision. She would honor her contract with Lorraine if there were any follow-up events, but she would not let herself be charmed by Ethan's apologies. She had been down this road before. She knew how it ended, with her feeling small and him feeling justified. Never again. Ethan stared at his computer screen, but the numbers blurred together. He couldn't focus on spreadsheets when his mind kept replaying the gala, the joke, Naomi's face, the video Mark had sent, with laughing emojis. His phone buzzed. His mother's name appeared on the screen. "Ethan, honey, I have the most wonderful idea," Lorraine said when he answered. "What's that, Mom?" "A follow-up dinner, something smaller and more intimate for our mid-level donors. They deserve recognition too, don't you think?" Ethan rubbed his forehead. "Sure. Sounds nice. I want you to co-chair it with Naomi. You two worked so beautifully together last night. I could see the spark between you." His stomach dropped. "Mom, I don't think." "Nonsense. You were perfect partners fixing that arch, and she needs someone reliable to help with the planning. Will you do it?" Ethan thought about saying no, about making up an excuse, but part of him wanted another chance, a chance to show Naomi he wasn't just that joke. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll co-chair it." "Wonderful. I'll call Naomi this afternoon." After his mother hung up, Ethan stared at Mark's group chat on his phone. The video had been shared 5 times already. Comments underneath called it hilarious and perfect timing. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to type something, to tell them to take it down. But what would he say? That it wasn't funny? That he was embarrassed? Instead, he typed, "Yeah, bad timing, that's all." The moment he sent it, he hated himself. But deleting it now would look worse, would make his friends ask questions he didn't want to answer. Ethan minimized the chat window. In the black screen, he saw his own reflection looking back at him. He looked tired, ashamed. When had he started caring more about being funny than being decent? Naomi was cleaning paintbrushes when Lorraine appeared in her classroom doorway. A few students were still finishing their projects at tables around the room. Colorful artwork covered every wall. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by," Lorraine said, holding a box of pastries. "I brought some leftover sweets from last night." "Of course not. Come in." Naomi dried her hands on a towel. "The students will love these." Lorraine looked around the bright, cheerful room. "This is lovely. You can see how much the children adore you. They're good kids. Very creative. Speaking of creative, I have a proposition for you." Naomi listened as Lorraine explained her idea for a smaller dinner. A more personal event to thank donors who gave smaller amounts but gave consistently. It sounded nice, meaningful. "I'd like you to co-chair it with Ethan," Lorraine said. "You two make such a good team." Naomi's first instinct was to say no immediately, but Lorraine's enthusiasm was genuine, and the pay would help with some repairs her apartment needed. "Let me think about it," Naomi said carefully. "Of course, dear. Take your time." That evening, Naomi sat in her living room with Tasha. They shared takeout containers on the coffee table. The video still bothered Naomi, but she needed practical advice. "The money would really help," Naomi said, "and it's just planning an event, not dating him." "Money isn't worth your peace of mind," Tasha replied, stabbing her lo mein with chopsticks. "That man showed you exactly who he is." A gentle knock interrupted them. Mr. Reynolds stood in the doorway, holding Naomi's mail. At 62, he was her upstairs neighbor and landlord, but he felt more like a grandfather. "Sorry to interrupt, ladies. Your mailbox was getting full. Come in, Mr. Reynolds. Want some Chinese food?" He sat in the worn armchair by the window. "What's got you two looking so serious?" Naomi explained the situation. "The gala, the joke, the job offer." Mr. Reynolds listened without judgment, the way he always did. "What's your gut telling you?" he asked finally. "My gut says stay away, but my brain says it's just work, and I could use the money." "Mm-hmm. And what's your heart saying?" Naomi was quiet for a long moment. "My heart is confused." Mr. Reynolds nodded slowly. "Sometimes avoiding all risk isn't protecting us. Sometimes it's just keeping us stuck." Tasha frowned. "You're not seriously telling her to work with this man?" "I'm not telling her anything. I'm asking her to think about whether she's making this decision from wisdom or from fear." Later, after Tasha and Mr. Reynolds had gone home, Naomi sat at her computer. She typed and deleted several emails to Lorraine. Finally, she wrote something simple. "Mrs. Cole, I'll be happy to co-chair the dinner with Ethan. I prefer to coordinate through email and text messages when possible. Best regards, Naomi." She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. This was just work. She could handle work. The next morning, Ethan found Naomi's email in his inbox. Her tone was polite, but formal, professional, cool. He read it twice, then crafted a careful response. "Hi, Naomi. Thank you for agreeing to co-chair. I think we can create something really special for these donors. Would you be free for a brief meeting this week to outline our responsibilities? I promise to keep it focused on the event planning." His finger hovered over the send button. The last sentence sounded desperate. He deleted it and rewrote, "Would you be available for a planning meeting this week to divide up tasks? Better, more professional." Naomi received his email during her lunch break. She was sitting in the school cafeteria, grading art projects while eating a sandwich. His response was respectful, straightforward. She typed back, "I can meet Thursday afternoon. There's a cafe called Morning Grounds near Lincoln Elementary. 3:30 work for you?" "Perfect. See you Thursday." For the rest of the week, both of them felt distracted. Naomi found herself rehearsing what she would say, how she would keep things professional, how she would not let his charm or apologies affect her judgment. Ethan practiced too. In his head, he apologized properly. He explained himself without making excuses. He showed her that he could be a reliable partner for this event, even if she never wanted to see him again afterward. Thursday came sooner than either of them expected. Morning Grounds was a small cafe with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. Naomi arrived right on time to find Ethan already sitting at a corner table. He had ordered 2 coffees, one black, one with cream, unsure of her preference. "Hi," he said, standing when he saw her. "Hi." She sat across from him and noticed the notebook and pen beside his coffee cup. He had come prepared. "I wasn't sure how you take your coffee," he said, gesturing to both cups. "Black is fine, thank you." They spent the first few minutes on logistics, guest list size, budget considerations, venue options. Both of them took notes and stayed focused on practical details. "I think the hotel ballroom might be too big for 60 people, Naomi said, sketching a rough floor plan. "It would feel empty." "What about the hotel's smaller conference room, the one with the fireplace?" "That could work, more intimate. We could do round tables instead of long ones." Their conversation began to flow more naturally as they discussed decorations and menu options. They disagreed on a few things. Ethan initially wanted more formal touches. Naomi preferred warmth and personality, but they found compromises. "What about entertainment?" Ethan asked. "Live music? A DJ?" "I was thinking something simpler, maybe just background music and a short program. Let people actually talk to each other." "That's smart. These donors have been supporting the charity for years. They probably have stories to share." Naomi looked at him with slight surprise. She hadn't expected him to think about the donors as real people with histories. Most event planners just saw them as checkbooks. "Exactly. This should feel like a family dinner, not a corporate presentation." They compared notes on terrible events they had attended. Ethan told her about a fundraiser where the speeches went on for 2 hours. Naomi described a wedding where the bride's father sang an entire song off-key. Despite herself, Naomi laughed. "That poor bride." The groom looked like he wanted to hide under the table. It was the first genuine laugh they had shared. For a moment, the tension between them eased. They agreed to visit a rental warehouse in 2 days to look at table settings and decorations. They would need to see options in person to make good choices. I can pick you up, Ethan offered. Save you the bus fare. Naomi hesitated. Accepting rides felt personal, but the warehouse was across town, and the bus would take an hour each way. Okay, she said, but just to the warehouse and back. Of course. As they packed up their notes, Ethan seemed to want to say something else, something beyond event planning. But Naomi stood up quickly, slinging her purse over her shoulder. I'll see you Friday afternoon, she said. Ethan watched her leave through the cafe window. She walked with purpose, her head high. He stayed at the table for a few more minutes, finishing his coffee and thinking. The meeting had gone better than he expected. She was professional but not cold, focused but not dismissive. And when she laughed about the wedding story, she looked genuinely relaxed for the first time since he met her. Maybe they could work together without everything being awful. Maybe that was enough. Friday afternoon, Ethan pulled up outside Lincoln Elementary in his 7-year-old Honda Civic. The car was clean, but definitely not fancy. Naomi had been expecting something more expensive, something that matched his polished appearance at the gala. She got in and immediately noticed the worn seat covers, the empty coffee cups in the cup holders, and a fleece jacket thrown over the back seat. It felt like a regular person's car, not a showpiece. Thanks for the ride, she said, buckling her seatbelt. No problem. The warehouse is about 20 minutes away. As they drove, conversation came easier than either expected. They talked about music. Both liked old soul songs and acoustic covers. About food, Naomi made amazing pasta sauce. Ethan could grill, but that was about it. I still live in the same condo I bought when I started working, Ethan said when they passed a fancy neighborhood. Everyone thinks I should upgrade, but I hate debt. I'd rather save money than impress people. Naomi filed this information away. It didn't match her image of him as someone who cared only about status and appearances. The rental warehouse was huge and crowded with furniture, dishes, and decorations for every kind of event. A young clerk named Brad showed them around, pointing out popular items and recent additions. When Naomi suggested colorful table linens instead of plain white, Brad made a comment. Just remember to keep things classy. You don't want the event looking too urban. The word hung in the air. Naomi's jaw tightened. She had heard that code word many times before. Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside her. His face flushed red. Actually, we want something warm and welcoming, he said awkwardly. Not stuffy. It wasn't exactly standing up to Brad's comment, but it wasn't agreeing with it either. Naomi noticed Ethan's discomfort, but also his silence about what urban really meant. They selected table settings, centerpiece options, and lighting fixtures. Naomi had good instincts for creating atmosphere. Ethan was practical about logistics and costs. This is going to look beautiful, Ethan said as they loaded sample items into his car. I hope the donors feel appreciated, Naomi replied. That's what matters. On the drive back, they shared a moment of genuine laughter over a hideously ornate candelabra they had both rejected. For just a few minutes, the awkwardness between them faded. But Naomi kept thinking about Brad's comment and Ethan's weak response. Was he afraid to speak up, or did he simply not see the problem? She added it to her mental list of things to watch for. Would you like to see where the magic happens? They were back at Lincoln Elementary. Ethan had helped Naomi carry a box of sample vases from his car. She stood at the school's entrance, keys in her hand. The art room? If you're not in a hurry, I want to set these up and see how they look with different lighting. The hallways were quiet. Most students had gone home, but a few were still in after-school programs. Naomi's classroom was at the end of the hall, and Ethan could hear it before he saw it. Miss Brooks, look what I made. The room was organized chaos. Paint stations, easels, drying racks full of colorful artwork. 3 students worked at different tables while soft music played from a small speaker. This is amazing, Ethan said, looking around at the artwork, covering every surface. Kids are natural artists. They just need space to explore. A shy boy named Marcus held up his painting, a swirling mess of blues and greens that somehow looked like an underwater scene. What do you think? Marcus asked Naomi quietly. Naomi knelt beside him, studying the painting seriously. I think you've captured something magical here. See how the colors flow together like real water? And this green here, it makes me think of seaweed dancing in the current. Marcus beamed. His painting went from mess to masterpiece, with her words. Another student accidentally knocked over a cup of paint water. Before Naomi could react, Ethan was there with paper towels, helping clean up the spill without making a big deal about it. "Thanks, mister," the girl said. "No problem. Accidents happen." Naomi watched him interact with the students. He wasn't trying to impress anyone or be the center of attention. He just helped quietly and naturally. As the afternoon wound down, parents arrived to pick up their children. Naomi walked each student to the door, making sure they had all their artwork and belongings. "See you Monday, Miss Brooks." "Bye, Miss Brooks. Tell your boyfriend I said hi." Naomi's cheeks warmed. "He's not my boyfriend, sweetie." But the little girl had already skipped away, leaving Naomi and Ethan alone in the colorful classroom. "Sorry about that," Naomi said, organizing papers on her desk. "Kids say what they think," Ethan replied with a slight smile. No filter. They set up the sample vases around the room, testing how they looked under different lights. The afternoon sun came through the big windows, making everything glow golden. "These will work perfectly," Naomi said, adjusting the angle of one vase. "Simple but elegant. You have a good eye for this stuff. It's just about making people feel comfortable, creating a space where they want to stay and connect." Ethan watched her move around the room, adjusting things slightly, seeing possibilities he couldn't see. She had the same focused energy she'd shown fixing the flower arch, but here, in her own space, she seemed more relaxed, more herself. "We should meet at the hotel next week," Naomi said, packing the vases back into their box. "Test some setup ideas in the actual space." "Sounds good. Wednesday afternoon?" "Perfect." They walked to the school entrance together. The hallways were empty now, echoing slightly with their footsteps. "Thank you," Ethan said as she locked the door behind them, "for the ride along today, for showing me this place. Thank you for helping with the kids. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." There was a moment of quiet between them. Not awkward exactly, but charged with possibility. Naomi felt herself softening toward him, despite her better judgment. Then she remembered Brad's comment at the warehouse, remembered Ethan's group chat message calling his joke bad timing, remembered all the reasons she had promised herself to keep this professional. "I should go," she said. "Bus will be here soon." "Of course. See you Wednesday." Ethan walked to his car while Naomi waited at the bus stop. As he drove away, he glanced in his rearview mirror and saw her standing there, backpack over her shoulder, looking like any other teacher heading home after a long day. But she wasn't just any other teacher. She was Naomi. And despite everything that had gone wrong at the gala, he was starting to care about what she thought of him. That scared him more than he wanted to admit. Wednesday afternoon found Naomi and Ethan in the hotel's smaller conference room, testing different arrangements for their dinner event. 60 chairs sat in neat rows, waiting to be organized into a more welcoming setup. "What if we do 8 tables instead of 10, Naomi suggested, moving chairs around. "Bigger groups, more conversation." "That could work." Ethan lifted a round table, positioning it near the fireplace. "This room feels so much warmer than the ballroom." They had been working for an hour, and the initial awkwardness had faded into easy collaboration. Naomi sketched layouts while Ethan moved furniture. They debated centerpiece heights and discussed the flow from cocktails to dinner. "The donors will love this," Ethan said, stepping back to admire their mock setup. "It feels like someone's home, not a hotel." "That's exactly what I was hoping for." They loaded the sample decorations back into boxes, preparing to return them to the rental warehouse. Outside, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The weather forecast had mentioned possible storms. "We should hurry," Naomi said, glancing out the window. "That doesn't look good." Ethan's car was parked in the hotel garage, but they had to drive across town to return the items. As they loaded the trunk, the first fat raindrops began to fall. "We'll make it," Ethan said, though he looked uncertain. They didn't make it. 20 minutes into the drive, the clouds opened up. Rain pounded the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. Cars slowed to crawling speeds. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, leaning forward to see through the downpour. "Maybe we should pull over," Naomi said, watching water pool on the road ahead. "Almost there. Just a few more." The car hit a patch of standing water and skidded sideways. For a terrifying moment, Ethan lost control completely. The steering wheel spun in his hands. Naomi gasped and braced herself against the dashboard. The car straightened out, but both of them were breathing hard. "I'm pulling over," Ethan said, his voice shaky. "Right now." He spotted a small roadside diner and carefully made his way into the parking lot. Rain drummed on the car roof like tiny hammers. Neither of them spoke for a moment, just sitting there catching their breath. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked. "Yeah. You?" "Yeah, that was scary. Really scary." They looked at each other and started laughing, not because it was funny, but because they were safe, because the adrenaline had to go somewhere. "Want to wait it out inside?" Ethan asked, nodding toward the diner. "I could use some coffee after that." The diner was exactly what you'd expect from the outside. Red vinyl, booths, checkered floor, the smell of bacon and coffee. A handful of other customers sat at scattered tables, all of them refugees from the storm. Naomi and Ethan claimed a booth by the window. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, brought them coffee without being asked. "Rough weather out there," she said. "Y'all are smart to wait it out." "Thank you," Naomi said, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "This is perfect." They ordered pie, apple for her, cherry for him, and watched the rain streak down the windows. The near accident had shaken something loose between them. The careful politeness was gone. "Can I ask you something?" Naomi said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. Ethan nodded. "At the gala, that joke you made, do you always talk like that about women you date?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Ethan could have deflected, could have changed the subject. But something about the near miss in the car, about sitting in this quiet diner, made him want to tell the truth. "My father used to make comments like that," he said slowly, "at family dinners. About women, about different neighborhoods, about people who didn't look like us. My mom would get uncomfortable, but she never said anything. And I learned to laugh along." Naomi listened without interrupting. "In college, my friends made jokes about preferences. In my 20s, my co-workers did the same thing. It was just normal, expected, even. But you knew it was wrong." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "I think I knew it hurt people, but I told myself it was just humor, that people who got offended were being too sensitive. Like me? No. Not like you." He met her eyes directly. "When you walked into that ballroom and everyone looked from you to me, I felt something I'd never felt before. Shame. Real shame." Naomi stirred sugar into her coffee, thinking. "My ex-boyfriend in college used to say things like that. When I told him it bothered me, he said I was overreacting, that he was just being honest about his preferences. What happened to him? I broke up with him. But it took me 2 years to work up the courage. Why so long? Because he was nice in other ways. Because he said he loved me. Because I kept thinking maybe I was being too sensitive." She looked out at the rain. "It's easier to doubt yourself than to start over." Ethan felt something twist in his chest. "I'm sorry he made you feel that way. Are you? Or are you sorry because now you understand how it affects your chances with me?" The question was direct, fair, and harder to answer than Ethan expected. "Both," he said honestly. "I am sorry he hurt you, but you're right. I'm also sorry because I see how my words must have sounded to you, how they connected to things you'd heard before." Naomi appreciated the honesty, even if it wasn't entirely selfless. "The thing is," she said, "I've heard a lot of apologies from men who say hurtful things. They always sound sincere in the moment, but then they go back to their friends and laugh about having to apologize. Is that what you think I did?" Naomi pulled out her phone and showed him the screenshot Tasha had saved. His group chat message. "Yeah, bad timing, that's all." Ethan's face went pale. He read the message twice, remembering exactly when he had sent it, remembering how it had felt to type those words. He stopped, started again. "I wanted to tell them to take down the video, to say the joke was wrong, but I was embarrassed. So I said the easiest thing instead. The easiest thing. Yes, not the right thing. No, not the right thing." They sat in silence for a few minutes. The rain continued outside, but it was lighter now. The worst of the storm was passing. "I can't be your lesson, Ethan," Naomi said quietly. "I can't be the woman who teaches you why your words matter, and then becomes your reward for learning. I understand. Do you? Because I've been that woman before, the one who excuses bad behavior because a man is trying to change. The one who settles for better than he was instead of good enough for what I deserve. Ethan wanted to argue, to promise he was different. But her words hit too close to home. He had expected her to give him credit for apologizing, had hoped his honesty in the diner would earn him forgiveness. He was still thinking about what he could get from her instead of what he owed her. "You're right," he said. "I was hoping this conversation would fix things between us. But that's not fair to you." "No, it's not." The waitress refilled their coffee cups. Outside, other customers began leaving as the rain slowed to a drizzle. "We should go," Naomi said. "The warehouse closes at 6. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable quiet. No more near accidents, no more deep conversations. Just two people who had shared an honest moment and were still figuring out what it meant. When they returned the rental items, Ethan was polite and professional. He didn't try to extend their time together or suggest dinner. He seemed to understand that the ball was in Naomi's court now. "Thank you for today," he said as he dropped her off at the school. "For being honest with me. Thank you for listening." As his car disappeared around the corner, Naomi stood on the sidewalk thinking about their conversation. About the difference between men who apologized to get what they wanted and men who apologized because they understood the harm they had caused. She wasn't sure which category Ethan fell into yet, but she was beginning to think it might be worth finding out. 2 days later, Naomi was in her classroom after school when her phone buzzed. A message from Lorraine about the dinner event. "How are things going with the planning? You and Ethan make such a wonderful team." Naomi smiled despite herself. Lorraine's enthusiasm was genuine and sweet. She was about to reply when she heard voices in the hallway. "Miss Brooks, you still here?" 3 of her students poked their heads into the classroom. They had stayed for after-school tutoring and were heading home. "Just finishing up some grading," she said. "How was math help?" "Good. Hey, is that man coming back? The one who helped clean up the paint?" "I don't know, sweetie." "Why?" "He was nice. And he didn't make fun of my painting when I spilled on it." After the students left, Naomi sat at her desk thinking about that day, about how naturally Ethan had helped without making a big show of it, about how he had listened when she talked about her ex-boyfriend without trying to convince her that he was different. Maybe that was the difference. Not whether someone was perfect, but whether they were willing to sit with the discomfort of their mistakes without rushing to fix them. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Ethan. "Hi, I know we have the dinner in 2 weeks, so I don't want to leave you hanging on planning, but I want you to know I'm not expecting anything from you beyond finishing this event together. If you want to keep things purely professional, I understand completely." Naomi stared at the message for a long time. It was the opposite of pressure, the opposite of demanding credit for growth. She typed back, "Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it." A minute later, another text. "Would you like to meet Monday to finalize the menu and timeline? We could do it over email if you prefer." Naomi looked around her empty classroom, at the students' artwork covering the walls, at the picture frames on her desk showing kids she had taught over the years. She thought about Mr. Reynolds asking whether she was making decisions from wisdom or fear, about her pattern of letting bad experiences stop her from risking good ones. "Let's meet in person," she typed. "Same cafe, 3:30. "Perfect. See you then." As Naomi packed up her things to go home, she felt something shifting inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, and not trust, but curiosity. A willingness to see what happened when someone listened instead of defended. When someone said, "You're right," instead of, "But I didn't mean it that way." It felt scary and hopeful at the same time, like standing at the edge of something new. Monday's meeting was different from their first one. The careful politeness was gone, replaced by something more honest. They worked through menu options and timeline details efficiently, but the conversation felt deeper somehow. "I was thinking about what you said," Ethan said as they reviewed the guest list, "about being someone's lesson instead of their reward. And I think I've done that to other people. Expected credit for basic decency, made women feel grateful for the bare minimum." Naomi looked at him across the small cafe table. "What made you realize that?" "Honestly, Watching you work with your students, the way you encourage them without expecting anything back, the way you see their potential instead of just their mistakes. Kids are different than adults. Are they? Or do we just stop giving adults the benefit of the doubt because we've been disappointed too many times? It was a good question, one Naomi had been asking herself since their conversation in the diner. I think adults have to earn the benefit of the doubt, she said, through actions, not words. That's fair. They finished their planning and packed up their notes. The dinner was less than 2 weeks away now. After that, they would have no reason to see each other again. Ethan, Naomi said as they prepared to leave. Yeah? I want you to know, what happened at the gala doesn't define everything about you. I see how you are with people, how you listen, how you helped with the kids. Thank you for saying that. But it doesn't erase what happened either. I know. And I don't expect it to. They walked out of the cafe together, pausing on the sidewalk outside. The afternoon sun was warm on their faces. See you at the dinner? Ethan asked. Wouldn't miss it. As they went their separate ways, both of them felt something had shifted. Not resolved exactly, but clarified. They understood each other better now. The hurt was still there, but it wasn't the only thing between them anymore. For the first time since the gala, Naomi felt curious about what might happen next. And for the first time in his life, Ethan felt motivated to change, not to get something, but because it was the right thing to do. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. The night of the community dinner arrived with perfect weather. Soft evening light streamed through the hotel conference room windows. Round tables dressed in warm burgundy linens filled the space. Small arrangements of white and gold flowers sat next to handwritten place cards in Naomi's careful script. Naomi stood near the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived. She wore a simple navy dress that made her look professional but approachable. Her smile was genuine as she welcomed donors who had supported the charity for years. Mrs. Patterson, so good to see you again, she said to an elderly woman with a silver cane. Your usual table by the window? You remembered. Bless your heart. Across the room, Ethan checked in with the catering staff. His black slacks and white button-down were neat but not flashy. He had learned to dress for the event, not for attention. The appetizers looked perfect, he told the head server. Naomi was right about keeping portions small for this group. Everything was going smoothly. Guests mingled comfortably, admiring the warm atmosphere Naomi had created. Conversations flowed easily between tables. The fireplace cast a gentle glow over everything. Ethan and Naomi moved through the room like a practiced team. When Mrs. Patterson needed help with her chair, Naomi was there. When Mr. Kim had questions about tax receipts, Ethan handled it quietly. They caught each other's eyes across the room, occasionally sharing small nods of coordination. Ladies and gentlemen, Lorraine said when dinner was nearly finished. Before we end this lovely evening, I want to thank the people who made it possible. She gestured toward Naomi and Ethan. Our co-chairs worked tirelessly to create this warm, intimate celebration. Naomi Brooks, whose artistic vision made our room feel like home. And Ethan Cole, whose attention to detail ensured everything ran perfectly. Polite applause filled the room. Naomi's cheeks flushed slightly. She wasn't comfortable being the center of attention. But then Ethan stepped forward. I want to add something, if I may, he said. Tonight's success belongs entirely to Naomi. She understood what our guests needed, not just a meal, but a celebration of their generosity. The heart behind tonight's warmth is hers. More applause. Warmer this time. Naomi looked at Ethan with surprise. He could have shared the credit equally. Instead, he had highlighted her contribution specifically. After the last guest left, hotel staff put on soft music while they cleaned. Empty wine glasses and crumpled napkins covered tables. The successful evening was winding down. Care to dance? Ethan asked as Naomi finished stacking centerpieces. She hesitated. Dancing felt personal, intimate. Different from working together. One song? She said finally. They moved to a clear space between tables. Ethan placed one hand on her waist, the other holding her fingers gently. She rested her free hand on his shoulder. They swayed awkwardly at first, finding their rhythm. Thank you, Naomi said softly, for what you said during Lorraine's speech. I meant every word. I know you did. The song was slow and sweet. Around them, staff worked quietly, giving them space. The conference room felt magical in the dim light, with flowers and candles still glowing. As the music ended, Naomi looked up at Ethan. His face was close to hers. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the careful hope. Without overthinking it, she leaned in and kissed him. It was soft, deliberate, a choice, not an impulse. When she pulled back, Ethan's eyes were wide with surprise. "I might be open to seeing what this is," she said quietly. "As long as we keep talking honestly about the hard things." "Yes," Ethan said immediately. "Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying it will be easy, or that I won't have bad days when I remember what happened. I understand, and I need you to understand that earning my trust is going to take time. Real time. I understand that too." They stood close together among the empty tables, both of them nervous about what came next. But for the first time since the gala, the nervousness felt hopeful instead of fearful. Naomi drove home that night, with her heart beating fast. She had kissed Ethan, had opened the door to something more between them. It felt scary, and right at the same time. She was still in her pajamas when her phone buzzed with a text from an old college friend. "Hey girl, saw something online you should know about." The message included a link to a local Facebook page. Naomi's stomach dropped as she clicked it. The video from the gala was posted there, along with a photo of her and Ethan from tonight's dinner. Someone had taken it while they were greeting guests. They looked comfortable together, happy. The caption read, "Guess someone doesn't mind his preferences after all." Comments underneath were a mix of mean-spirited jokes and genuine concern. People who knew Naomi from school or the neighborhood asking if she had seen the original video. Others defending her right to date whoever she wanted. But it was the screenshot in the comments that made her heart sink. The same group chat message from Ethan that Tasha had saved weeks ago. Yeah, bad timing, that's all. Someone had posted it alongside a newer message from the same chat. This one was from just last week. "Looks like Ethan's charm offensive worked." She fell for it. The message wasn't from Ethan, but it was in the same group chat. The same friends who had laughed at his original joke were now mocking his relationship with her. Naomi's hands shook as she read comment after comment. People she didn't know debating whether she was too good for him or whether she was asking for trouble. Her personal life had become entertainment for strangers. She set her phone face down and whispered, "I should have known better." The warm feeling from their kiss was gone, replaced by the familiar ache of being reduced to a punchline, of having her choices questioned by people who saw her race first and her humanity second. Naomi turned off the lights and went to bed, but she lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. The next morning, Ethan sat in his favorite coffee shop, reading the news on his tablet. He felt lighter than he had in weeks. Last night had been perfect. The dinner, the dance, the kiss, Naomi's willingness to try again. His phone buzzed with notifications from Facebook, tags and comments on posts he hadn't seen yet. Confused, he opened the app. His face went pale as he saw the video, the photo, the comments. Hundreds of people debating his relationship with Naomi like it was a reality show. Strangers making jokes about her, falling for his act. But the group chat screenshot hit him like a punch to the gut. He opened his messages and scrolled back through the conversation. There it was, Mark's comment from last week, along with laughing emojis from other friends. Looks like Ethan's charm offensive worked. She fell for it. Ethan had missed the message when it was sent. He had been distracted, focused on planning the dinner, but now he saw it clearly. Saw how his friends viewed his relationship with Naomi, saw how they were mocking both of them. He scrolled further and found his own message from weeks ago. Yeah, bad timing, that's all. The words looked even worse now than they had when he first sent them. Dismissive, careless, exactly the kind of response that would hurt Naomi if she saw it. And now she had seen it, along with everyone else. Ethan's coffee sat untouched as he stared at his phone screen. He thought about Naomi waking up to this, about her seeing strangers debate whether she was smart or foolish to give him a chance. He thought about how hard it must have been for her to kiss him last night, to open herself up to the possibility of something real between them. And now this. His phone rang. Naomi's name appeared on the screen. "Hi," he answered, his voice hoarse. "We need to talk." "I know. I just saw. Not over the phone. Same cafe. 1 hour." She hung up before he could respond. Naomi was already sitting at their usual corner table when Ethan arrived. Her face was calm, but he could see the hurt in her eyes. Her phone lay face up on the table, the Facebook page still open. "I can explain," he started as he sat down. "Can you?" She turned the phone toward him. "Explain this message where you called it bad timing. Explain how your friends are making jokes about me falling for it." Ethan looked at the screenshots, at Mark's mocking comment, at his own defensive response from weeks ago. The words looked even worse in broad daylight. "I didn't write that comment about you falling for anything," he said. "But you didn't stop it either. Just like you didn't stop the video from being shared. Just like you called your joke bad timing instead of wrong. You're right. I'm tired, Ethan." Naomi's voice was steady but sad. "I'm tired of being asked to measure a man's progress by how embarrassed he feels, instead of by what he actually does. What do you want me to do? Tell me and I'll do it." "That's exactly the problem. You're still thinking about this as something you can fix with the right action. Something you can solve to get what you want." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. She was right again. Even now, even after everything, his first instinct was to find a way to make her forgive him. "I can't be your lesson and your reward at the same time," Naomi continued. "I can't be the woman who teaches you why your words matter and then becomes your prize for learning." She stood up and placed a few dollars under her untouched coffee cup. "I thought we were past this," Ethan said desperately. "Last night, you kissed me. You said you wanted to see what this could be. Last night, I thought you were different. I thought you had actually changed, not just learned better tactics. I have changed. I am changing." "Then prove it." Naomi slung her purse over her shoulder. "Not to me. To yourself. Because right now, all I see is someone who wants credit for trying without actually doing the work." She walked out of the cafe without looking back. Ethan sat at the table, staring at her abandoned coffee, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. That afternoon, Ethan sat on his couch in wrinkled clothes, still wearing yesterday's shirt. He had called in sick to work, had ignored texts from Mark asking about drama with the teacher. He thought about Naomi's words, about being someone's lesson instead of their reward, about wanting credit for trying without doing the work. A knock at his door interrupted his spiral. Lorraine stood outside with a container of leftover pastries from the dinner and a concerned expression. "You look terrible," she said, walking into his living room without invitation. "Thanks, Mom. Really helpful. What happened? Last night you and Naomi looked so happy together." Ethan showed her his phone. The video, the comments, the group chat screenshots. Lorraine read everything quietly, her face growing more serious with each swipe. "Oh, honey," she said finally. "I messed up. Again. I keep messing up. Tell me what happened. All of it." So Ethan did. He told her about the original joke, about his weak apology, about the group chat message he had sent to save face with his friends, about how hard Naomi had worked to trust him again, and how he had let her down. Lorraine listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "I need to tell you something," she said finally. "About my college roommate, Sarah." Ethan looked up, surprised. His mother rarely talked about her past. Sarah was black, one of the smartest, kindest women I've ever known. We were best friends for 2 years. What happened to her? A boy I was dating made a comment about her at a party, something cruel and racist. I was embarrassed, but I didn't say anything. I told myself it wasn't my fight. That speaking up would make things awkward. Lorraine's voice grew soft. Sarah heard what he said, saw me stay quiet. She asked me later why I didn't stand up for her. I made excuses. Said I was shocked, that I didn't know what to say. Did she forgive you? She tried. We stayed, friends, for a few more months. But something was broken between us. She started pulling away. By senior year, we barely spoke. Ethan waited for more, but his mother seemed lost in memory. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Every day. Not speaking up was one of the biggest mistakes of my life, because it wasn't just about that one moment. It was about showing Sarah that my comfort mattered more than her dignity." Ethan felt the words hit home. Is that what I did to Naomi? What do you think? He thought about his group chat message, about staying quiet at the warehouse when Brad made his comment, about focusing on his own embarrassment instead of Naomi's hurt. "Yeah," he said quietly. "That's exactly what I did. The question is, what are you going to do about it now?" Ethan looked at his mother. "What can I do? She won't even talk to me. Maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is becoming the kind of person who does the right thing whether or not anyone is watching. Whether or not it gets you what you want." After Lorraine left, Ethan sat alone in his quiet apartment. He looked around at his life, his safe job, his comfortable routine, his circle of friends who never challenged him. He walked to his bathroom and stared at himself in the mirror. Really looked. Not at his appearance, but at the person behind his eyes. "You did this," he said out loud. "Now what are you going to do about it?" The next morning, Naomi stood in her classroom before school started. She had barely slept, her mind churning over the Facebook comments and the conversation with Ethan. Tasha appeared in her doorway with coffee and a knowing look. "Saw the post," she said simply. "Everyone did. How are you holding up?" "I'm angry. At him, at myself, at everyone making jokes about my life. You have every right to be angry." They sat together while students' voices echoed in the hallway outside. Naomi traced patterns on her desk with her finger, thinking. "The thing is," she said, "finally, I saw something in him. Real change, not just performance. But every time I start to trust that, something like this happens." "Maybe that's your answer right there." "What do you mean?" "Maybe the problem isn't whether he's changing. Maybe it's that you keep looking for proof instead of just walking away." It was a hard truth, one Naomi had been avoiding. Later that day, Mr. Reynolds stopped by with a small potted plant for her classroom windowsill. He noticed her distracted mood immediately. "What's weighing on your mind, child?" Naomi found herself telling him everything. About the dinner, the kiss, the Facebook post, about feeling foolish for hoping things could be different. "Mr. Reynolds listened carefully, watering the plant while she talked. "Can I ask you something?" he said when she finished. "Of course. Are you ending this because you know he can't change, or because you're scared of what happens if he can?" The question caught her off guard. "What's the difference?" "One is wisdom, the other is fear." Naomi thought about that as she prepared for her afternoon classes. About the difference between protecting herself from real harm and protecting herself from the possibility of disappointment. She still didn't have an answer when the school day ended, but she was starting to understand the question. That evening, Ethan opened his laptop and navigated to the group chat that had caused so much damage. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for several minutes. Finally, he typed, "I need everyone to remove that video of me from the gala. The joke was wrong, and I don't want to be associated with content that treats people like punchlines." The response was immediate. "Mark, seriously? It's just a joke, man. Brad, don't tell me the teacher got to you. Jason, come on, Ethan." "Don't be so sensitive." Ethan felt the familiar pressure to back down, to laugh it off and keep the peace. But he thought about Naomi's face when she saw those screenshots, about his mother's story about Sarah. "I'm not being sensitive," he typed. "I'm being accountable. Remove the video or I'm leaving this chat." "Mark, she really did get to you, didn't she?" "Actually, she didn't get to me. My conscience did. And if that's a problem for you, maybe we should reevaluate this friendship." The chat went quiet for several minutes. Then Brad wrote, "Whatever, man, your loss." A few minutes later, Jason posted a message, "Video's gone. Sorry if it caused drama." But Mark's response made Ethan's decision easy. "Can't believe you're choosing her over us." Ethan typed his final message, "I'm not choosing her over you. I'm choosing to be a decent person. That shouldn't be a competition." Then he left the chat entirely. His phone felt quiet afterward. For the first time in months, he wasn't part of that constant stream of jokes and commentary. It felt lonely but also clean. He opened a document on his laptop and began writing a letter to Naomi. Not an email or a text, but an actual letter. He wrote, draft after draft, throwing away pages that sounded defensive or self-serving. Finally, he crafted something honest. "Naomi, I know you don't owe me anything, including reading this letter, but I needed to say these things, even if you never respond. You were right about everything. I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. I prioritized my comfort over your dignity. I asked for credit for trying without actually doing the work. I left the group chat where those screenshots came from. not to impress you, but because I realized I don't want to be the kind of person who stays friends with people who mock others for entertainment. I also bought you a new easel to replace the one that got damaged during our event setup. It's not an apology gift, it's just replacing something that broke. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a second chance. But I want you to know that you changed something in me. Not because I want to be with you, but because you showed me what it means to have standards, to expect better from the people in your life. Thank you for that. Ethan. He folded the letter carefully and placed it in an envelope with her name. Tomorrow, he would deliver it along with the easel. Then he would give her the space she deserved to decide what came next. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt like he was doing something right. Not because it would get him what he wanted, but because it was simply the right thing to do. The next evening, Naomi climbed the stairs to her apartment after a long day of teaching. Her arms were full of groceries and student projects to grade. She nearly tripped over the large box sitting outside her door. A white envelope with her name sat on top of the box. Inside, she found Ethan's letter. She read it twice, sitting on her living room floor with the box beside her. The words were different from his previous apologies. No explanations for his behavior. No requests for understanding. Just ownership and change. She opened the box to find a beautiful wooden easel, much nicer than the one that had been damaged. A small note was taped inside, for all the art still to come. Naomi sat with the letter in her hands for a long time. She thought about Mr. Reynolds' question, about whether she was protecting herself from harm or from possibility. She thought about Ethan leaving his friend group, about him buying her an easel with no expectation of reward, about the careful way he had written his letter. Most of all, she thought about the man she had seen dancing with her after the dinner, the one who had given her credit in front of everyone, who had helped her students without being asked. Maybe the question wasn't whether people could change, maybe it was whether they were willing to do the hard work of changing, even when no one was watching. Naomi picked up her phone and typed a simple message, "Thank you for the easel, and for the letter." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Her phone buzzed a few minutes later with Ethan's response, "You're welcome. Take care of yourself." That was all. No pressure for more conversation, no attempt to turn her gratitude into an opening. For the first time since the Facebook post, Naomi smiled. The next afternoon, she found herself walking toward Ethan's apartment building. She wasn't sure what she was going to say. She only knew that his letter had left something unfinished between them. Ethan was coming home from the grocery store when she appeared near the entrance. He looked surprised but not hopeful. Careful. "Hi," he said. "Hi. Can we walk?" They headed toward the waterfront path that wound along the harbor. Late afternoon sun sparkled on the water. Other couples and families strolled the walkway, enjoying the mild weather. "I read your letter," Naomi said as they walked. "Thank you for letting me know. You left your friend group. I should have done that a long time ago." They walked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Naomi was processing what she wanted to say, how to explain the shift she felt. "For years," she said finally, "I've been told I'm too sensitive when I react to comments about my race, too demanding when I expect people to do better." Ethan listened without interrupting. "So, when someone makes an effort, even a small one, part of me wants to be grateful. To lower my standards because at least they're trying, that's not fair to you." "No, it's not. But it's exhausting to always be the one setting boundaries. To always be the one explaining why something hurts." They stopped at a bench overlooking the water. The harbor stretched out before them, peaceful and wide. "I spent a lot of time being angry about what happened," Naomi continued. "But I realized something. I don't want fear to make my decisions for me. What does that mean?" "It means I'm willing to try again. Slowly. With conditions." Ethan turned to face her, surprised. "What conditions?" "First, we keep talking honestly about the hard parts, not just when there's a crisis, but regularly, even when it's uncomfortable." "Yes, absolutely." "Second, you don't get credit for basic decency. Speaking up when someone says something wrong isn't special. It's expected." "I understand." "And third, I need you to understand that trust isn't something I can just decide to give you. It has to be earned, day by day, through consistent actions." "How long will that take?" Naomi smiled for the first time in days. "I don't know. Maybe months, maybe years, maybe forever." "That's honest." It's the only way I know how to be. Ethan reached over slowly and took her hand. She let her fingers curl around his, testing how it felt. Scary but not wrong. I can't promise I won't make mistakes, he said, but I can promise I'll do the work, whether or not it gets me what I want. That's all I can ask for. They sat on the bench as the sun lowered toward the horizon. Other people passed by. Joggers, dog walkers, families heading home for dinner. Normal people living normal lives. For the first time since the gala, Naomi felt like they might be able to have something normal too. Not perfect, but honest. Not easy, but real. So what happens now? Ethan asked. Now we see what this is, day by day. I'd like that. Me too. As they walked back toward town, Naomi felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Not the desperate hope that someone would change for her, but the quiet confidence that she deserved someone who was willing to change for themselves. Whether Ethan was that person remained to be seen, but for the first time, she was willing to find out. 2 months later, they attended another charity event at the same hotel. This time, they arrived together. The spring fundraiser was smaller than the gala, but the ballroom brought back memories. Naomi wore a simple black dress and silver jewelry. Ethan had chosen a navy suit that made him look professional but approachable. Their relationship was still new, still learning. They had good days and difficult conversations. Moments of easy laughter and moments of careful honesty about race and family and the future. But they were both showing up, both doing the work. During cocktail hour, they mingled with other guests. Ethan introduced Naomi to his co-workers without hesitation. She told him about her students' latest art projects. They moved through the room like a couple who belonged together. Everyone has their preferences when it comes to dating, said Mr. Henderson, an older donor who had clearly had too much wine. No shame in that, right? The comment landed in the conversation like a stone. Naomi felt her shoulders tense. She waited to see what would happen next. Actually, Ethan said calmly, I used to hide behind that word to excuse hurtful comments. I've learned that preferences can be coded language for prejudice. I don't talk that way anymore. He changed the subject smoothly, asking Mr. Henderson about his recent vacation. But the message was clear. The line had been drawn. Naomi watched Ethan's face as he spoke. No showmanship, no performance, just quiet conviction. Later, a young woman approached them during dinner. She recognized Naomi from social media. Are you the teacher from that video? The one with the racist boyfriend? Ethan's not racist, Naomi said firmly. He made a mistake and owned it. That's different. But how do you know he won't say something like that again? It was a fair question, one Naomi had asked herself many times. I don't know, she said honestly, but I know he's doing the work to become better. And I know I deserve someone who shows up consistently, not someone who's perfect from the start. The woman seemed satisfied with that answer. As she walked away, Ethan squeezed Naomi's hand under the table. Thank you, he whispered, for defending me. I wasn't defending you, I was defending us. The distinction mattered. Naomi wasn't protecting Ethan from consequences or making excuses for his past. She was acknowledging the work he had done and the relationship they were building together. As the evening wound down, they helped clean up like they always did, moving chairs, packing leftover flowers, making sure the hotel staff had everything they needed. In the quiet aftermath, Ethan caught their reflection in a mirrored column, a black woman and a white man, standing close together, comfortable in each other's presence. What are you thinking? Naomi asked, following his gaze. I'm thinking about how different this feels from that first night. Different how? Then, I was performing, trying to be funny, trying to fit in. Tonight, I just was myself, I noticed. They finished cleaning and walked to the parking garage together. The evening air was cool and sweet. Spring flowers bloomed in planters outside the hotel. Want to get ice cream? Ethan asked as they reached his car. It's almost 10 o'clock. So, there's that place by the harbor that stays open late. Naomi smiled. Okay, but I get to choose the flavors. Deal. They drove through the quiet city streets with the windows down. Old music played softly on the radio. Neither of them felt the need to fill the silence with conversation. At the ice cream shop, they shared a sundae and talked about small things, Naomi's students, Ethan's work projects. A movie they both wanted to see. Normal couple things. The kind of conversations that build relationships day by day. "I have something to tell you," Ethan said as they walked back to the car. Naomi's stomach tightened. "What? My mother wants to have you over for dinner. She's been asking for weeks. That's what you were nervous to tell me?" "I wanted to make sure you were ready. Family stuff can be complicated." Naomi thought about meeting Lorraine as his girlfriend instead of his work partner, about navigating family dynamics and expectations. "Let's do it," she said, "but I get to bring dessert. She'll love that." "And Ethan?" "Yeah? If she says anything weird about us being together, you speak up. Immediately." "I will. I promise." They drove home through empty streets, holding hands at red lights. The radio played soft jazz. The city looked peaceful in the darkness. Back at Naomi's apartment, they sat on her couch with cups of tea. A cooking show played quietly on television. Ethan traced slow circles on the back of Naomi's hand. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how scared I was to try this again. Are you still scared?" "Sometimes. But it's a different kind of scared now." "Different how?" "Before, I was scared you would hurt me. Now, I'm scared of how much I'm starting to care about you. Is that bad?" "No," Naomi said, resting her head on his shoulder. "It's just new." They sat together in the soft light of her living room. The television murmured in the background. Outside, the city settled into nighttime quiet. Naomi thought about how they had started, about hurtful words and public humiliation and all the reasons she should have walked away. But she also thought about consistent actions and honest conversations and the way he looked at her now. Like she mattered, like they mattered. Their story hadn't started right. But it was continuing because they didn't pretend the wrong parts never happened. They learned from them. "Ethan? This is nice." "What is?" "This. Us. Just being together, without having to fix anything or prove anything." "Yeah," he said quietly. "It really is." Outside, spring rain began to fall softly against the windows. Inside, they sat close together, both of them finally understanding what it meant to choose each other with eyes open and hearts steady. Not because it was easy, but because it was worth the work. Not because they were perfect, but because they were real. And sometimes, Naomi thought as she drifted toward sleep, that was more than enough. The end.